disruptive innovation really happens very infrequently, and blockchain truly represents a huge disruptive innovation in many markets. And we have a real opportunity here as we've looked at it across finance, supply chain, and various markets to see the opportunity that blockchain represents, not only as a big disruptor to these centralized businesses, but to the equity underlying those businesses. Nowhere is that more true, though, in commerce, right? And we saw commerce is no stranger to disruptive innovations. At the beginning, commerce for a long time was about physical retail, right? With physical stores, people go into, buy things, and then we call that commerce 1.0. And then the internet came along, right? And the internet disrupted that physical retail by offering a low price business model that was able to attract customers away from physical retail. Early on, many of you may remember that the actual buying experience for e-commerce was worse than physical retail. So people would go into a store and then they would pull out their phone and find a lower price online on Amazon or maybe another site, and then order it there in the store, even though they could get it right there immediately, but instead they would wait 2 or 3 weeks back then in order to receive the same item because it was lower priced. And over time, that internet then has created that disruption to make Amazon really one of the biggest winners. And really the winners in the Amazon and in the e-commerce side are the shareholders, right? Because Amazon is a centralized business, and so the shareholders ended up owning this $1 trillion in equity that Amazon represents. And now we sit here, and blockchain represents the next disruptive innovation in commerce. And blockchain has an amazing opportunity because it enables it through this business model change to be a token-based business model. And that means no middleman fee, and really importantly, this concept of shared ownership, right? And so in the disruptive innovation here for Commerce 3.0, this decentralized commerce, the winners are no longer the equity shareholders who own stock, who own the equity in those companies, but instead it's the people who are the token holders in that entire economy. And this represents a 10x opportunity then. Amazon worth $1 billion, right? The token holders have the entire economy's value that they are sharing ownership of, worth $10 trillion in value that those token holders then have at the economy. Commerce 3.0, by its very nature, is what we think of as inclusive. And that means that it's not in all of these little siloed categories like you sometimes see in e-commerce, but instead every single product category operates within Commerce 3.0. And so if you think of Commerce 2.0, e-commerce, you have sites, Amazon, that deal in physical goods, maybe some digital assets, maybe some other digital products, but Amazon doesn't sell crypto tokens, right? And Amazon doesn't sell real estate and other pieces. You have to go to different sites to do that in Commerce 2.0. But Commerce 3.0, by the nature of being inclusive, allows a platform and allows an economy that all of those different product categories can thrive in and operate in one network, right? And one network to be able to have buyers and sellers and communities all inside offering and working with these different product categories. And that is the most important shift from e-commerce to decentralized commerce, is this notion of an inclusive community ethos, right? And so all of these products then, when you think of how much revenue, how much sales across all of these categories then, that's where we get to this huge opportunity of $100 trillion. This market represents all of the sales across all these categories because in Commerce 3.0, it happens all within the same network, as opposed to individual networks in Commerce 2.0 or in physical retail. So what do we actually mean though? Like, what do we think about kind of what it looks like for Commerce 3.0? When you think about physical retail, right, we know this very well. It's individual stores that attract local people, where each store is trying to maximize their local revenue, right? And so they make choices about pricing and product selection that are really appropriate to their local community that they're trying to attract. And you end up with, then little bitty nodes where they're attracting individual people around them. Then in Commerce 2.0, you end up with one site that everybody comes to globally. And that represents the large single store that's trying to maximize their profit via that centralized pricing and product listing. And they've got that low price incentive that we talked about to do that. And they've got a very low cost business model to try and drive that product, drive that forward. Now you look at decentralized commerce, Commerce 3.0, and it now represents a whole network of those stores and buyers and communities that are all maximizing at the same time their local value. So similar to what Commerce 1.0 was doing, maximizing locally. They're still selling to their communities locally, but they're also owners via token of this entire network. And so that encourages them to maximize globally as well. And so as this network grows, all of the token holders and all of the participants in that network share equally in the growth of that overall Commerce 3.0. And so they end up being able to maximize both their local profit, but also the global economy at the exact same time. And that is what is that represents a huge opportunity and the biggest difference between these other two mechanisms, where it's very centralized, locally optimized profit maximization. So we took a look at the whole landscape of Commerce 3.0. And I want to point out a couple of different things that we want to focus on here. One is what's nice about this now token-based economy is it has created this need and availability of a platform and protocol level, right? Because you have the lower level blockchain that operates in a trustless environment, and now you have protocols that are on top of that blockchain that basically are allowing applications to run on that blockchain and optimize according to that. And so that is where our project Sesame Open fits, to basically enable the entire economy to happen in order to drive that $100 trillion opportunity, to both create and capture that value. And then within that, on top of that, then you have a bunch of decentralized marketplaces of many different product categories, right? So you've got crypto collectible kind of marketplaces like Rarebits and Wax. You've got whole decentralized exchanges like IDEX and others in that mode. You've got kind of the Airbnb decentralized model of B and crypto cribs. And so all of those are creating token-based businesses, decentralized businesses on top of that blockchain level, on top of those protocols, in order to create within that network different product categories that they focus on. And then you have payment that we'll talk especially about later on, because obviously payment is critical to commerce. We want people to be able to pay, and there are many projects that are focusing on how do we enable a crypto-based payment model, either from a stablecoin standpoint or from a particular speed or blockchain-based approach, in order to drive and make crypto adoption much simpler in that commerce space. And so all of those are working in that same opportunity. And then you have folks who are trying to decentralize different parts of the commerce experience, right? And so we're all familiar with kind of an influencer model, affiliates and influencers, and how there's a lot of work right now to tokenize that model and how commissions get paid or how they monetize their views and their followers as part of that. There's a bunch of projects in there. There's loyalty and reward, and so how do you get folks to basically take that concept of a loyalty point and tokenize that piece of it in order to make it so that's on the blockchain, more easily immutable and transferable, and all of the pieces that come with that. And then and very importantly, the reputation and customer data, because commerce creates a lot of data, right? And in this trustless environment that decentralized commerce represents, it also is important to think about how do you make sure that the sellers and the buyers and the communities have a high degree of trust and reputation in that network in order to make them be willing participants in commerce as part of that. And so when we think about Commerce 3.0, all of these projects are all contributing to the overall $100 trillion economy, because they're all helping to make buyers and sellers come together, to help influencers find products that they can promote to that, to help loyalty points make it even a stickier process by which more people want to buy more in the decentralized economy. And so, but really critical as part of that, right, is that notion of the protocol layer, right? And this is where Sesame Open plays. You know, when we think back to what the e-commerce technology stack looks like, right? You've got this TCP/IP layer, as it's called, and then you have the HTTP layer on top of that to basically help the web pages that define e-commerce render and actually be able to see them, right? And nobody made any money from HTTP, right? Because there was no way to capture the value that that protocol layer in the e-commerce, in the Commerce 2.0 stack was creating, right? All of the value went to the Amazons and Etsy's and Coupangs and all of the other places that were e-commerce sites that were driving the transactions. In the Commerce 3.0 tech stack, that's entirely different, because tokens let the value of that protocol get created and captured. And so this is a really exciting part of Commerce 3.0, where you have to be able to now not only create decentralized commerce at the top with some of those projects that we talk about, like decentralized marketplaces and loyalty projects and those, but the protocol layer itself provides an opportunity to create a tremendous amount of value, and in our opinion, the most amount of value, right? Because the protocol works across all of those different categories, right? And it works across all of the different blockchains, because commerce is not blockchain specific. Commerce is on Icon and Ethereum and Bitcoin and on Tron, and all of those blockchains want to have commerce applications and drive commerce transactions through them. But all of them need a protocol in order to help make that happen. And that is where Sesame Open steps into that void, right? Because it needs, a protocol is necessary to help those decentralized commerce projects work directly with the blockchain and take advantage of the blockchain technology and disruptive innovation that it represents. So when we think about this, though, there's really a critical part of that protocol is thinking about what are the token economics in that protocol, right? How do you make sure the token is incentivizing the behavior that you want in Commerce 3.0? How do you make sure that it is creating this long-term, sustainable, non-speculative value for token holders? Because remember, the winners in Commerce 3.0 are the token holders. They're the ones, there's no equity holders, there's no shareholders. It's the people who have token that are sharing in the value of that economy. But you have to make sure at the protocol level, because at that level is where that value is being captured, that you have the token economics in place to make that work and to make that actually drive the incentives to transact and to capture and create that value in a long-term way. So let's talk a little more about that. You know, there's really two key ingredients to make that happen. One is the community, right? We talked about how Commerce 3.0 is inherently community, right? It's about the community. And this community is essentially what helps to drive that shared economy forward. And the token economics, so you have to think about how do you drive native token demand inside the network, right? Speculative investor demand is great, but you have to really think about how do you design the token inside the network to make sure that you are creating demand and that you're having that demand be long-term sustainable and more than you're supplying into the market for that token. And so let's talk about community first. The community part here has a lot of different pieces to it. One is, if you think about the notion of these communities in Commerce 3.0, they have a responsibility for, one, playing that influencer, incentivized reseller role, right? Because they have community members who they know and can curate products for, do hyperlocal pricing for. They know their communities in a way that no one else does. And so they can come in and basically create this community orientation at the local level, right? And so we talked about that physical retail, they're kind of imitating that, right? I've got a community and I'm able to optimize locally for what that community wants to buy. And I find the products they want to buy and I create that model. But remember that the other part of Commerce 3.0 is not only are they locally maximizing their own profit then, but they own this, they share ownership of this whole network because they are token holders. And so not only then do they locally maximize from a community-oriented standpoint, but they also own the whole community, that whole network, through their token ownership. And that aspect of things then, as they're then driving their value creation both locally and globally, is what makes this so exciting, right? Because that is what this community ethos does not happen in other places, right? Because Amazon is not trying to help Coupang sell stuff, right? That's not how they work. There's natural competition between there. But in a decentralized model, if Coupang sells more, it works really well for me because now the entire network has grown, and even if I didn't get that sale, I actually gain in value because the entire economy and the value of that is shared by the token holders is where I gain from that as well. There's a lot of ways to think about token economics in this space. I'm going to walk through how Sesame Open thinks about it because honestly, we think it's the best way to think about it. We've designed our protocol to really think through the long-term impact of how do you incentivize and make sure Commerce 3.0 happens? How do you bring buyers and sellers together? And there's a couple of aspects to it. On the supply side, all that matters in commerce is that you create the incentive to buy. Buyers need to buy things, right? And otherwise, commerce does not happen. And so we've taken a page out of the e-commerce strategy, right? The way that they were able to steal customers from physical retail was make the price lower, right? So customers are very sensitive to price. They will go out of their way to find the cheaper thing. And so token gives a new way to do this. And so in the Sesame Open model, we basically use the token as a reward mechanism that gets minted into the network with every transaction. And so anytime a buyer buys something in the Commerce 3.0 network, they get rewarded with Sesame Open token in that case. And that acts as essentially a cashback, low price incentive for why they would want to buy through that network, from that influencer, from that seller, instead of from e-commerce or from physical retail. Now, supply is great, but you can't just have supply in token economics. You have to also think about demand. And there's two really important parts of the demand equation that we thought about. One is we think about circulation limiting demand. So how do you take tokens out of circulation, because that obviously helps to increase the price, increase value as you do that, right? Lower circulation. And so for all of the communities and sellers that join the network, remember this is a trustless network. So they don't know each other, right? There has to be a way for them to be able to feel comfortable and confident transacting with one another. And the best way to do that is essentially to use escrow that they stake in order to act as a way to punish them if they do bad things, but to make sure that they act according to the rules of the network, right? And so, as long as these communities and sellers are selling things and working in the network, they've staked Sesame Open token that essentially is out of circulation. But even more critically is this notion of how do you create long-term sustainable demand in the network, right? And that is where the aspect of, okay, sellers are happy when they are selling things, right? That is why they're joining the network. They've got products they want to sell. They've got services they want to sell. They're happy when sales happen, right? And so the way that it's been set up is they pay commission to those communities in token whenever sales happen, right? So if you imagine, step back for a second and think, every time a transaction happens, two things occur. One, the buyer gets some token for the low price incentive, and the seller pays the community who brokered that sale, who influenced that sale, some commission in Sesame Open token, right? That is the source of that long-term demand then, because those sellers have to keep buying token, right? Every time they sell, they need to have the token in order to pay that commission. And that long-term demand is much greater than this supply on this side, right? Because the reward that you have to give to buyers is lower than the commission that most of these sellers are paying to communities. And so that creates this wonderful effect over and over and over, so that over the long term, the demand of token is dramatically greater than the supply that's going into the marketplace, going into the circulation. And that's what drives long-term token value for investors, for anyone who's a token holder in this model. Network effect is what drives the model even more, it creates that, what's called a flywheel, right? It creates this fast growth model as part of this Commerce 3.0 effort, right? And what's really powerful about this is that there's two network effects going on at the same time. One is a very traditional commerce network effect, because buyers are coming because of that low price, right? And if buyers are coming because of the low price, then sellers are interested in coming because there's more buyers, right? So more buyers means more sellers. And when there's more sellers, then more communities are coming because they're like, oh, okay, I've got more products to sell, I can earn more commission, I can get more revenue, I can make more money from what I'm doing in this network as well. So more communities come online into the network, and they bring more buyers with them. Right? And the cycle just keeps going, right? More buyers, more sellers, more communities. That in and of itself is a powerful network effect that we've seen work over and over again in e-commerce and other places. Any marketplace business, that is the core network effect and business model that they do. But now we overlay the token ownership on top of this, and that shared ownership, and it creates a secondary network effect right inside this as well. Because now you've got communities, remember they had a stake token in order to join the network, and they're receiving token from sellers for every commission. So they're token holders. Buyers are getting token as a reward, so they're token holders. Sellers are buying token and staking token, so they're token holders. And now you've got this extra incentive for them to want to grow the economy, want to work, want to sell, want to transact, because as that economy, that Commerce 3.0 economy gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, they're all benefiting from that. So they're further encouraged. Communities are going to tell their friend, hey, you should join. You can sell stuff. You're going to get value out of that. Buyers are going to say, oh, I got this token. It's starting to be worth more and more and more. You should come and check this out. Buy more. Sellers are going to be like, oh, what I've done here in order to stake my token, it keeps appreciating in value. This is amazing. And so you've got this dual network effect, which is really powerful in terms of both the commerce side as well as the token side. If you want, we have written a lot of information about this topic across a number of publications, both in Korean at D Street, as well as in CoinMarketCap and VentureBeat. And so we've gone in depth into both token economics and what that represents, as well as Commerce 3.0 and what that really is and works as a business model. And so we bring a lot of expertise to the table as a team in both of those topics that we bring to the project, that we bring to our token holders as part of that. Definitely check out our website where you could read much more about this, or join us on Kakao or on Telegram. If you take nothing else away from this discussion, though, right, I want you to remember that this Commerce 3.0 that's powered by this disruptive innovation is a tremendously enormous opportunity. A greater than $100 trillion commerce economy, we think a $10 trillion token holder value. It's going to be shared and keep growing as that network effect really kicks in. And so, huge opportunity that's driven by this strong token demand, this token economics that really helps bring it all together, right? Because the business model is what wins. Technologies don't win. You know, there's a long litany and a huge number of great technologies that failed because they didn't have a business model that works. The token economics is the business model that works for blockchain, for decentralization, for Commerce 3.0. And so that is what drives this forward, what makes this work as part of it. So I'm going to stop there. I do want to just say, we're very excited to be here in Korea. As many of you do know, we are doing our IEO with Dcoin this week, starting on Wednesday. And so we've been getting a great reception from the Korean audience as we've been talking with a bunch of different publications and meeting our community as part of it. I would be remiss without saying that we look forward to working with all of you, hopefully, as token holders. The IEO is the only token sale that we're doing. There's been no pre-sale. So it's completely only starting with Dcoin as part of this on the 16th. And we really look forward to working with our community to drive this Commerce 3.0 story forward, because it's all about community for us as a project. It's all about community for Commerce 3.0. This is really the opportunity for us to make this happen, make this part of it work for us. So I'm going to stop there. Hopefully I didn't go too much over time as I looked at it. I do want to ask if there's any questions about Sesame Open or about Commerce 3.0. Happy to answer them quickly now, or we can wait until at the very end and do it over some more iced coffee and drinks otherwise. That's all from me. I'm going to come.